Have you ever wondered if a small act of kindness could change your life? For one girl, it did more than that. It revealed a secret that had been buried for years. Her story will make you think twice about every person you pass on the street. What if the next stranger you helped wasn't a stranger at all? Lily was about to find out. As she walked home from school one day, she spotted a disheveled homeless man sitting on the sidewalk. Lily hesitated, torn between her desire to help and her instinct to keep walking. Little did she know, this moment would change everything. Lily decided to approach the man, offering him her packed lunch and a bottle of water. As she handed over the food, their eyes met. The man's grateful smile seemed oddly familiar, sending a shiver down Lily's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this encounter than met the eye. The mysterious package. Sometimes, the smallest gestures can unlock the biggest mysteries. Lily's simple act of sharing her lunch was about to open a door to her past she never knew existed. What would she discover when she opened the package that arrived just the next day? The next morning, Lily woke up to the sound of the doorbell. She rubbed her eyes, still groggy from a restless night filled with dreams of the homeless man's familiar smile. As she made her way downstairs, she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was about to happen. Opening the front door, Lily found a medium-sized package on her doorstep. It was wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine, giving it an old-fashioned look. There was no return address, just her name written in elegant cursive handwriting. The package felt surprisingly heavy for its size, and Lily's heart raced as she picked it up. Back in her room, Lily sat on her bed, staring at the mysterious delivery. She turned it over in her hands, searching for any clue about its origins. The paper crinkled softly under her fingers, and she noticed a faint scent of old books and leather. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could this be related to the homeless man she had helped the day before? Lily's fingers hovered over the twine, hesitating. Part of her wanted to rip it open right away, while another part felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. What if this package contained something she wasn't ready to face? She took a deep breath, reminding herself that curiosity had led her to help the homeless man in the first place. Maybe this was the universe's way of rewarding her kindness. With trembling hands, Lily began to untie the twine. The rough texture against her fingers made the moment feel even more real. As she carefully peeled back the brown paper, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a worn leather box, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own. Lily's heart pounded as she lifted the lid of the box. Her eyes widened in shock at what lay inside. The first item she saw was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. Next to it was a small velvet pouch and what appeared to be an old photograph face down. But it was the object nestled in the center that made Lily gasp out loud. There, glinting in the morning sunlight streaming through her window, was a beautiful gold locket. It looked antique, with delicate engravings covering its surface. Lily picked it up with reverence, feeling its weight in her palm. She noticed a small clasp on the side, and with a trembling finger, she opened it. Inside the locket were two tiny portraits. On one side was a face Lily recognized instantly, her own mother, looking much younger and happier than Lily had ever seen her. But it was the other portrait that made Lily's world tilt on its axis. Staring back at her was a younger version of the homeless man she had helped the day before. Lily's mind reeled. How was this possible? What connection did this man have to her family? She reached for the folded paper, her curiosity now burning like wildfire. As she unfolded it, her eyes fell on the first line, "My dearest Lily, there's so much you don't know about your past." The words blurred as tears filled Lily's eyes. She blinked them away, determined to read every word. But as she delved deeper into the letter, she realized that this was only the beginning of a much larger story, a story that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her family and herself. Lily's gaze drifted back to the photograph still lying face down in the box. With a deep breath, she reached for it, knowing that whatever image it held would change her life forever. As she slowly turned it over, her fingers trembling, she prepared herself for another shock. The truth was, Lily's act of kindness hadn't just brightened a homeless man's day, it had set in motion a series of events that would unravel a long-buried family secret. As she stared at the photograph in her hands, Lily realized that her journey was just beginning. The mysterious package wasn't just a delivery, it was a key, unlocking a door to her past that she never knew existed. Echoes from the past. What if your past was trying to catch up with you? For Lily, the mysterious package wasn't just a delivery, it was a key, unlocking a door to her past that she never knew existed. As she held the worn photograph in her trembling hands, memories she didn't know she had began to surface. The image showed a man she barely recognized yet felt inexplicably drawn to. Could this be the missing piece to a puzzle Lily never knew she was meant to solve? Lily's mind wandered back to her childhood, to a time when her family was whole and happy. She remembered warm summer days in the park, her father pushing her on the swings as her mother watched, laughing. The scent of her father's cologne as he hugged her goodnight, the sound of his deep voice reading her bedtime stories. These were the memories she clung to, the ones that made her father's absence all the more painful. But there was one memory that stood out above all others, a pivotal moment that changed everything. Lily was just a little girl when it happened. It was just another ordinary day. Her father had kissed her goodbye that morning, promising to be home for dinner. But dinner came and went, and he never returned. The days turned into weeks, then months, and finally years. Her father had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that neither Lily nor her mother could fill. The disappearance shaped Lily's life in ways she was only beginning to understand. She watched her mother struggle to cope, working long hours to make ends meet. The laughter that once filled their home was replaced by a heavy silence. Lily learned to be strong, to take care of herself and her mother, but deep down, she never stopped wondering what had happened to her father. As she stared at the contents of the package, Lily felt a surge of emotions. The gold locket with her mother's picture, the letter addressed to her, and now this photograph, they all seemed to be pieces of a puzzle she didn't even know existed. Her fingers traced the edges of the photo, studying the face of the man who looked so much like the homeless stranger she had helped. The man in the picture was younger, his face free of the lines and weathered look she had seen the day before, but there was no mistaking those eyes, the same eyes that had looked at her with such gratitude when she offered her lunch. Lily's heart raced as she realized the implications. Could this man, this homeless stranger, be connected to her long-lost father? Lily's mind whirled with questions. If this man knew something about her father, why had he been living on the streets? Why hadn't he approached her before? And most importantly, what did all of this mean for her and her mother? She picked up the letter again, her eyes scanning the words she had read earlier. My dearest Lily, there's so much you don't know about your past. The words seemed to take on new meaning now, hinting at secrets and truths that had been buried for years. Lily realized that her simple act of kindness hadn't just brightened a homeless man's day, it had set in motion a series of events that could potentially unravel the mystery of her father's disappearance. As she sat surrounded by the contents of the package, Lily felt a mix of excitement and fear. She was on the brink of discovering something big, something that could change everything she thought she knew about her family. But was she ready for the truth? What if it wasn't what she had always hoped for? Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She had spent years wondering about her father, imagining all the possible reasons for his disappearance. Now, she had a chance to find out the truth, whatever it was. She knew she had to face it. She owed it to herself, to her mother, and to the memory of the father she barely knew. How far would you go to uncover a long-buried truth? For Lily, the answer was clear, as far as it takes. With renewed determination, she embarked on a journey to find the mysterious homeless man who seemed to hold the key to her past. But in a city of millions, how do you find one person who doesn't want to be found? Lily's search began where it all started, the sidewalk where she had first encountered the man. She scanned the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of his familiar face, but the spot remained empty, save for a few pedestrians hurrying by. Undeterred, Lily decided to expand her search. She visited nearby shelters, describing the man to volunteers and staff. "He's in his late 50s, gray hair, kind eyes," she'd say, showing them the old photograph from the package. But each time she was met with sympathetic shakes of the head. No one seemed to recognize him. As the day wore on, Lily's frustration grew. She walked for hours, her eyes darting from face to face in the crowd. Every disheveled man on a park bench made her heart skip a beat, only to sink again when she realized it wasn't him. The city suddenly felt vast and impersonal, swallowing up any trace of the man she sought. Exhausted and disheartened, Lily found herself in a small convenience store buying a bottle of water. As she approached the counter, something caught her eye. There, pinned to a corkboard behind the cashier, was a collection of local announcements and missing person flyers. Her gaze locked onto a familiar face. "Excuse me," Lily said, her voice trembling with excitement, "that man in the photo, do you know him?" The shopkeeper, an elderly man with kind eyes, peered at the flyer. "Ah, yes, he comes around here sometimes. Quiet fellow, always polite. Why do you ask?" Lily's heart raced. She pulled out the old photograph from her pocket and showed it to the shopkeeper. "I think he might know something about my family. Have you seen him recently?" The shopkeeper's eyes widened as he looked at the old photo. "Well, he muttered, "that's him, all right. Just younger, you know. Now that I think about it, I did see him yesterday evening. He was headed towards the old park on Maple Street." Lily felt a surge of hope. She thanked the shopkeeper and rushed out of the store, her feet carrying her towards Maple Street. The park was only a few blocks away, and with each step, she felt closer to uncovering the truth. As she approached the park, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the grass. Lily's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of the man. She walked along the winding paths, her heart pounding with anticipation. Then, as she rounded a corner, she saw him, sitting on a bench near the park's edge. It was the homeless man she had helped just days ago. He was staring off into the distance, seemingly lost in thought. Lily froze, suddenly unsure of what to do next. She had spent all day searching for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt a mix of emotions wash over her. Excitement, fear, and curiosity battled within her. What would she say to him? How would he react? And most importantly, what secrets did he hold about her past? Taking a deep breath, Lily steeled herself and began to walk towards the bench. With each step, she felt as though she was walking towards a new chapter in her life, one that would reveal truths she had long sought. The man hadn't noticed her yet, and Lily realized she still had a moment to turn back if she wanted to. But she knew she couldn't. She had come too far to give up now. Whatever truths awaited her, whatever secrets this man held, Lily was ready to face them. As she approached the bench, the man finally turned and saw her. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Lily knew that her life was about to change forever. The air between them crackled with unspoken truths. What would you do if you found out your life was built on a foundation of lies? Lily was about to uncover a past she never knew existed, and the revelations would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her family. Lily's heart raced as she approached the bench where the homeless man sat. Her legs felt weak, but she pressed on, driven by an overwhelming need for answers. The man's eyes flickered with recognition as she drew near, a mix of emotions playing across his weathered face. "Hello," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think you might know something about my family." The man shifted uncomfortably on the bench, his gaze darting around as if looking for an escape route. But then he seemed to steel himself, his shoulders squaring as he met Lily's eyes. "I've been waiting for this day," he said, his voice rough with disuse, "but I didn't think it would come so soon." Lily's mind reeled. How could this stranger have been waiting for her? She pulled out the old photograph from her pocket, her hands trembling as she held it out to him. "This is you, isn't it?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The man nodded slowly, a sad smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That was me, a lifetime ago." Lily sat down beside him, her legs no longer able to support her. The question she'd been holding back for years suddenly poured out. "Who are you? How do you know my family? Why did you send me that package?" The man held up a hand gently, stemming the flow of her words. "One question at a time, Lily. Yes, I know your name. I know a lot about you, actually." He paused, his eyes taking on a faraway look. "I remember the day you were born. Your father, he was so proud. He held you in his arms and promised to always protect you." Lily's breath caught in her throat. This man knew her father. She leaned in, hungry for more information. The man continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "You used to love strawberry ice cream every Sunday. Your dad would take you to the park, and you'd beg for a cone. And that stuffed elephant you carried everywhere, Mr. Trunks, wasn't it?" Lily's eyes widened in shock. These were intimate details of her childhood, things she'd almost forgotten herself. "How could you know about Mr. Trunks?" she asked, her voice a mix of awe and fear. The man's eyes met hers, filled with a lifetime of regret and longing. "I'm George," he said simply, "and I'm the reason your father disappeared." Lily recoiled as if struck. Her mind struggled to process this information. This man, this George, was connected to her father's disappearance. Anger flared within her, battling with her curiosity in a tiny, persistent spark of hope. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Where is my father? What did you do to him?" George held up his hands in a placating gesture. "It's not what you think, Lily. Your father, he's alive, and he's been trying to find a way back to you all these years." Lily's world tilted on its axis. Her father was alive after all this time. She felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the implications of George's words. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely audible. "If he's alive, why didn't he come back? Why did he leave us?" George's face crumpled with guilt. "It's a long story, Lily. One that involves mistakes, regrets, and circumstances beyond our control. But I promise you, your father never wanted to leave you. He's been watching over you all these years, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth." Lily's mind whirled with questions. She wanted to demand answers, to shake the truth out of this man who seemed to hold the key to her past. But a part of her was terrified of what she might learn. George leaned in, his eyes intense. "I've been waiting for you to find me, Lily, because now, finally, it's time for you to know the whole truth." As George began to speak, Lily felt her world shift. Beneath her feet. How many pieces of her past would she have to reassemble before she could finally see the complete picture? George's weathered hands trembled as he began his tale. "I met your father when we were both young and ambitious. We worked together at a big tech company, climbing the corporate ladder side by side. But success came at a price." He paused, his eyes clouding with regret. "We got caught up in a world of long hours, high stress, and temptation. Alcohol became our escape. Your father tried to quit, but I dragged him back in every time." Lily listened, her heart racing. She'd always imagined her father as a hero, not a man struggling with addiction. George continued, his voice heavy with shame. "One night, we made a terrible mistake. There was an accident. No one was hurt, but your father, he couldn't face the consequences. He was afraid of losing everything, his job, his family, his freedom. So he ran." Lily's mind reeled. All these years, she'd wondered why her father had abandoned them. Now, the truth was unfolding like a tattered map, revealing a landscape she'd never imagined. "But why didn't he come back?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. George shook his head. "Shame is a powerful thing, Lily. The longer he stayed away, the harder it became to return. He watched you grow up from afar, too afraid to reach out, convinced you were better off without him." Lily felt a wave of anger wash over her. Better off? We struggled for years. Mom worked herself to the bone to keep us afloat. How could he think we were better off? George nodded, acknowledging her pain. "Your father made mistakes, Lily, but he never stopped loving you. He spent years trying to make amends, to become someone worthy of your forgiveness." As George spoke, Lily's anger began to soften, replaced by a complex mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. She thought of the mysterious package that had started this journey. "The package," she said suddenly. "You sent it, didn't you? But why now?" George's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope. "Your father, he's been sober for years now. He's rebuilt his life piece by piece. When he saw you help me on the street, he knew it was time to bridge the gap, to try and make things right." Lily's mind whirled with questions. "So all this time, he's been what? Watching me?" George nodded. "From a distance. He didn't want to disrupt your life until he felt he deserved a place in it. The package was his way of reaching out, of showing you the man he used to be and the man he's become." Lily thought of the contents of the package, the old photographs, the locket, the letter. Each item now carried a new weight, a fragment of a story she was only beginning to understand. "But why involve you?" she asked. "Why not reach out himself?" George's face softened. "He was afraid, Lily. Afraid you'd reject him outright if he appeared suddenly. He hoped that by sending me, by letting you discover the truth gradually, you might be more open to hearing him out." Lily sat back, overwhelmed by the revelations. Her father was alive, he'd been watching over her all these years, and now he wanted to reconnect. It was almost too much to process. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. George reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "That's up to you, Lily. Your father wrote this note. It has his phone number. If you're ready to talk to him, to hear his side of the story, you can reach out. But if you're not, he'll understand. He knows he has no right to expect your forgiveness." Lily stared at the folded note, her heart pounding. What secrets lay hidden within that simple piece of paper? The package that started it all held more than just memories, it contained the key to unlocking a past she never knew existed. George watched Lily's face intently as she held the note, her fingers trembling slightly. He remembered the day he had helped to prepare that package, carefully selecting each item with her father. It was a labor of love and regret, a time capsule meant to bridge the gap of years. "Your father spent months choosing what to include," George said softly. "He wanted to show you the man he used to be and the man he's become." Lily took a deep breath and unfolded the note. Inside was a phone number, written in a familiar handwriting that made her heart ache. She set it aside for now, focusing instead on the other contents of the package. She pulled out a stack of old photographs, their edges worn with time. The first one showed her parents on their wedding day, young and full of hope. Her mother's smile was radiant, and her father looked at her with such love that Lily felt a lump form in her throat. "I remember that day," George said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "Your father was so nervous he almost forgot the rings." Lily laughed despite herself, imagining her father as a young, fumbling groom. It was a side of him she had never known. The next photo made her gasp. It showed her father holding her as a newborn, his face a mix of joy and terror. "He was afraid he'd drop you," George explained with a chuckle. "But once he held you, he didn't want to let go." As Lily flipped through the photos, she saw her childhood unfold through her father's eyes, birthday parties, first days of school, dance recitals, moments she had almost forgotten, preserved in these images. At the bottom of the stack, she found something unexpected, her own childhood drawings, crayon scribbles of stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, and me, brought tears to her eyes. He kept every drawing you ever gave him, George said softly. Even after, well, he couldn't bear to part with them. Lily's anger began to melt away, replaced by a confusing mix of emotions. She realized that while her father had been physically absent, he had never truly left her life. The last item in the package was a thick envelope. Inside, she found a letter written in her father's handwriting. The paper was tear-stained and wrinkled, as if it had been written and rewritten many times. Dear Lily, it began, I've started this letter 1,000 times, but no words seem adequate to express my regret and my love for you. As Lily read, she felt as if she was finally getting to know the man her father truly was, flawed, struggling, but filled with an unwavering love for his family. He detailed his battle with addiction, his shame and fear, and his journey towards redemption. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, the letter concluded, but I hope that one day you might give me the chance to earn a place in your life again. All my love, Dad. Lily looked up at George, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Why now? She asked. After all these years, why reach out now? George smiled gently. Your act of kindness, Lily. When you helped me on the street, your father saw it. He realized that despite everything, you had grown into a compassionate, caring young woman. It gave him hope that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for reconciliation. Lily sat back, overwhelmed by the realization that her simple act of sharing her lunch had set this whole chain of events in motion. She had never imagined that offering a sandwich to a homeless man would lead to uncovering the truth about her father's disappearance. Can a single moment of compassion truly heal years of pain? As Lily picked up the phone, her hands trembling, she wondered if she was ready to face the consequences of her simple act of kindness. The truth about her father had been revealed, but the hardest part was yet to come. Lily's finger hovered over the call button, her mother's number displayed on the screen. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. As the phone rang, she felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Hello. Her mother's voice came through, tinged with concern. Lily, is everything all right? Mom, Lily began, her voice shaky, there's something I need to tell you. I received a package about Dad. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Lily could almost hear her mother's heart racing. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. What kind of package? As Lily explained the contents of the mysterious delivery and her encounter with George, she could hear her mother's breath catching. Years of buried emotions bubbled to the surface, threatening to overwhelm them both. He's alive? Her mother asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and hope. All this time, he's been watching us. Lily felt a pang of guilt. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I didn't know how. Her mother's reply was soft, understanding. Oh, sweetie, you've carried this burden alone for too long. We'll face this together, okay? As they talked, Lily realized that her mother's pain ran just as deep as her own. Years of unanswered questions and sleepless nights had taken their toll. But beneath the hurt, there was a flicker of something else, a cautious hope for closure, and maybe even forgiveness. The next few days passed in a blur of emotions. Lily and her mother spent hours talking, crying, and comforting each other. They pored over the contents of the package together, filling in the gaps of their shared history. Finally, the day arrived for their family reunion. Lily stood outside a small cafe, her heart pounding. Her mother squeezed her hand reassuringly as they waited. And then she saw him. Her father approached slowly, uncertainty etched on his face. He looked older, more weathered than in the photographs, but his eyes were the same. As he drew near, Lily felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, relief, and a love she thought she buried long ago. Lily, he said, his voice cracking. I don't know where to begin." For a moment, they stood in awkward silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lily's mother took a step forward. "Hello, Sam," she said softly. "It's been a long time." The ice broken, tears began to flow. Tentative hugs were exchanged, years of absence compressed into a single charged moment. As they sat down to talk, Lily marveled at how her simple act of sharing a sandwich with a homeless man had set this reconciliation in motion. Over coffee and pastries, they began the difficult process of rebuilding their relationships. Sam spoke of his struggles with addiction, his shame, and his long journey toward sobriety. Lily and her mother shared stories of their life without him, the hardships they'd faced, and the strength they'd found in each other. It wasn't easy, there were moments of tension, old hurts resurfacing, but there were also moments of laughter, of shared memories long forgotten. As the afternoon wore on, Lily felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The family she had longed for all these years was finally within reach. As they prepared to leave, Sam turned to Lily, his eyes brimming with tears. "Your kindness," he said, "to a stranger on the street, it gave me the courage to reach out. You've grown into an amazing young woman. Lily. I hope I can be part of your life again." Lily looked at her parents, seeing them not as perfect beings or villains, but as flawed, complex humans trying their best to make amends. She realized that forgiveness wasn't a single act but a journey they would all have to take together. As Lily's family took their first steps on the path of reconciliation, they had no idea how far-reaching the effects of her simple act would be. Could a single sandwich shared with a stranger really transform an entire community? Months passed, and the wounds of the past slowly began to heal. Sam worked tirelessly to rebuild trust with his family. He attended counseling sessions, both individually and with Lily and her mother. The process was challenging, filled with difficult conversations and painful memories, but it was also sprinkled with moments of joy and rediscovery. Lily found herself looking at the world differently. Her encounter with George and the subsequent family reunion had opened her eyes to the power of compassion. She couldn't stop thinking about how a simple act of kindness had set off a chain reaction that changed her life. Inspired by her experience, Lily started volunteering at local homeless shelters. She wanted to understand the struggles faced by people like George and find ways to help. Her parents, seeing her passion, decided to support her efforts. Together, they launched a small community outreach program focusing on providing meals and job training for the homeless. The program started small, with just a handful of volunteers serving meals once a week, but word spread quickly, and soon more people from the community wanted to get involved. Lily's story of reconciliation and second chances resonated with many, inspiring them to lend a hand. As the outreach program grew, so did its impact. Local businesses began offering job opportunities to program participants. The city took notice and provided support for housing initiatives. What had started as a simple sandwich shared on the street was now changing lives across the community. George, too, was part of this transformation. With the support of Lily's family and the resources provided by the outreach program, he slowly began to rebuild his life. He found a part-time job, moved into stable housing, and even started mentoring others who were struggling with homelessness and addiction. One day, as Lily was walking home from a volunteer shift, she passed a homeless woman sitting on the sidewalk. In the past, she might have hurried by, avoiding eye contact, but now she saw things differently. She remembered how her simple act of kindness had set off a chain of events that reunited her family and impacted her community. Lily approached the woman, offering her a warm smile and a sandwich from her bag. As they talked, Lily learned that the woman was a former teacher who had fallen on hard times after losing her job. Lily told her about the outreach program and invited her to visit. Later that week, Lily saw the woman at the shelter, talking to a job counselor. It was a small moment, but it filled Lily with hope. She realized that every act of kindness, no matter how small, had the potential to change someone's world. As the outreach program continued to grow, Lily often found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the day she'd offered her lunch to a stranger, never imagining how it would change her life. She thought about the pain and joy of reconnecting with her father and the healing that had followed. Lily's story began to spread beyond her community. Local news outlets picked up on the success of the outreach program, sharing the tale. People from neighboring towns reached out, wanting to start similar programs in their communities. Sam, once absent from his daughter's life, now stood proudly beside her as they shared their story at community events. He often spoke about how Lily's kindness had given him the courage to face his past and seek redemption. His journey inspired others struggling with addiction to seek help and reconnect with their families. Lily's mother, too, found healing through their work. She formed a support group for families affected by addiction and absence, creating a space for others to share their experiences and find hope. As Lily's story spread, people began to see the power of small acts of kindness. Her simple gesture of sharing a sandwich had led to family healing, community transformation, and personal growth for many. The outreach program she started with her parents touched countless lives, offering hope and second chances to those who needed it most. Lily often reflected on how differently things might have turned out if she'd walked past George that day. She realized that every person has the potential to make a difference, even in ways they can't imagine. Her experience taught her that compassion isn't just about feeling for others, it's about taking action, no matter how small. As Lily's community continued to change for the better, she hoped her story would inspire others. She wanted people to understand that kindness isn't just nice, it's transformative. So, the next time you have a chance to help someone, remember, you might just be changing their world.